so many reasons right now in this moment why we need a general strike that the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, even called for one. This idea is starting to break through. This is the ultimate weapon of working people of our class, and we can help make it a reality. So we're going to get into it today. Just a reminder, no one owns the idea of a general strike. Folks have been organizing for mass labor movements for centuries, and it's going to really be up to all of us to lead this fight. So we all have to be leaders in our communities for something so unprecedented to work. So we're going to hear from organizers across the country. We're going to hear where they are and why they're mobilizing for a general strike during a roll call. And then we're going to hear from labor leaders like Ben and Eugene about how general strikes have shaped our country throughout history. And then finally, we're going to close out with a call to action and unity. So please, in the comment section on YouTube, please let us know where you are calling in from and why you need a general strike. Feel free to also please post any questions there that you have, and we will try to answer them throughout the call. All right. So, if anything else, folks are asking me to repeat my intro. Okay, I am Eliza. I am in upstate New York, and I was a labor organizer with the Fight for 15 movement to raise the minimum wage. But in 2022, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I had a personal breaking point and created the generalstrikeus.com website, and now I'm just one of the organizers, like everyone else here, fighting for a general strike. So, enough about me. Moving on. Now we're going to call on other organizers. So, starting us off from Chicago, Jaleel.
Hey y'all, my name is Jalil. I'm calling in from Chicago, an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We're so grateful for this webinar today. In Chicago, of course, we've been organizing against the terror that the federal government has been unleashing on our communities through Operation Midway Blitz. The people have been defiant against this terror and organizing with their coworkers and their neighbors and forming networks around the city, block by block. The mood of the people is very defiant, and we think that this defiance has the potential to grow into a general strike if we can organize this energy. And by mentioning it in his No King's Day speech, Mayor Brandon Johnson brought the idea of a general strike into more of the mainstream, thus opening up our new political horizons. And I'm so excited for this webinar and this call to action because the workers do have power, and we do need to come together and fight back against the billionaires waging war on us. Thank you so much.
Hell yeah, Jaleel. Thank you. And from Colorado, Dane, are you on? You're off mute. You're good to go, Dane. Actually, now you're muted again. Okay, Dean, we're gonna come back to you, okay? Because you're muted. We'll come right back to you. We're gonna go to Detroit today.
Hey, peace and power, you all. My name is Day. Detroit has been putting in real work, so I just wanted to uplift our GSUS Detroit chapter. We're about to host our fourth Feeding the Fight of the year in a community survival program, which is built with partners across the city, including PSL Detroit. Feeding the Fight, it isn't a charity; it's a survival program, and it ties in survival and resistance, which is meeting material needs while building things like trust, relationships, and political education, political power. Every meal is a brick in the foundation that we need to have a successful general strike. Because a general strike, it's not just about withholding labor, it's making sure our people can stand strong when the system fails or retaliates. So Detroit is showing what that looks like. And if we keep building that block by block, city by city, we won't just survive the collapse of the old world. We'll be ready to build the new one with our hands. Peace and power.
Thanks, Day. Moving on to Los Angeles to Jay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, we will do Dane. Yes,
I'm
Dane in
Dane.
Colorado.
Yay! I'm Dane. I'm with the Colorado and the Denver chapter. I facilitate locally and on a state level. We have organizers on the call from our other chapters in Colorado Springs and in North Colorado. I'm currently up at Ice Watch. This is one of the main reasons I'm pushing for a general strike. I've seen our
Oh no, we lost Dane. Okay, I can I'll read Dane's blurb when they get back, but let's go to Los Angeles to Jay while they're on Ice Watch. I think it's a little touch and go. Thanks, Jay.
Hi everyone, my name is Jay and these are my comrades. We are representing the PSL Los Angeles branch. We're really excited to join the call today because, as other organizers have said, we've been fighting against ICE in LA for a long time, leading some pretty big protests, joining coalitions to keep our community safe, as well as organizing like the Vote Socialist 2026 campaign and trying to get people more engaged politically, more aware of a better future that we could build together. And we think a general strike is the next step of taking that political organizing and on the streets to action, and building something that can really take us to the next level of struggle in the United States and build a socialist future. So we're really excited to be here with you guys.
Awesome. Nice to meet you guys. And finally, Raina in New York City.
Hey everyone, this is Raina calling from New York City. We're here watching the webinar together at the People's Forum. I'm a member of DC 37 and an organizer with the PSL. Here in New York City, we want a general strike because we're facing multiple crises. Our neighbors are getting kidnapped by ICE. Our rents are skyrocketing where our wages are staying the same. And we're ready to fight back against these billionaires that continue to steal from our labor to fund endless wars while services for our people on our planet are getting slashed. So, if we're the workers who make society run, we can shut it down, and we are ready. I'm going to pass it off to Ben, who's an organizer with GSUS.
Hi, I'm an organizer with the New York City chapter of General Strike US. I just had a statement I was going to make, mostly to my fellow New Yorkers, but I'm sure it'll be relevant to others. Let's harness the revolutionary potential of New Yorkers. Getting organized. Huge marches like No Kings have demonstrated that we have undeniable power in numbers, but they lack demands or tangible threats to the ruling class, while alienating half the movement with neoliberal messaging, peace-pleasing, and dangerous collaboration with pigs. Mamdani's victory is a sign that New Yorkers are eager to end the fascist status quo and build real working-class power. But our power must exist outside of the rigged two-party system and elected officials. Our power exists in mutual aid, in food and land sovereignty, in anti-imperialist direct action, tenant and worker unions, unhoused and incarcerated solidarity, tax resistance, community defense, and so much more. Hard work built on love for each other and on an unapologetic drive towards liberation. Hard work that is instrumental to our goal of waging economic warfare against the fascist, capitalist, white supremacist ruling class, which is also known as the general strike.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys from New York City. And just to, Dane didn't get to finish what they were saying. They are currently doing ICE Watch because one of their neighbors was detained currently as we speak, a teacher, despite having a visa through 2029. They were moving her and her children to a facility in Texas like cattle. This is just one of the reasons Dane is organizing for a general strike every single day because communities need to be coming together to build resistance and resilience so we can fight back against the oppressive forces tearing apart families and exploiting our people. We need to be doing more than voting and protesting, and a general strike is how we can escalate and get our power back. Okay, moving on to a political education. I'm really excited. We're going to hear from Ben of PSL about how we've gotten such crucial rights from labor movements like general strikes. So, Ben, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. I wanted to just begin. In addition to being an organizer and an activist, I taught for many years U.S. history and labor history. And one of the things I was struck by, and someone who knew this already as a product of the public schools in our country, is that you basically never hear about any strikes in U.S. history, let alone general strikes. And so we come up with this conception that the rights we have are somehow the rights we've won actually weren't won, that they were handed to us either via the U.S. Constitution or via elected officials who just got together one day and said, let's make things a little bit better for people, or let's expand democracy, and let's lower the work day to only 8 hours. But actually, every right we have has been won through a struggle, and very often the biggest struggles and some of the most impactful struggles have been general strikes. So, contrary to popular belief, there is actually a long history of general strikes in the United States, and there's a long history of strikes in general. So, we won't be able to go through all of them, but I wanted to just highlight a few of them that I think we can generalize some big lessons from for our fight today. For me, some and others who study history, the point of studying history is not to sort of collect facts and figures, but to try to learn the lessons that empower us to take action today. So Brandon Johnson, as a couple of our people have already mentioned, and No Kings mentioned, he said the general strike of my ancestors against slavery. And this in and of itself is a kind of historical and political intervention to frame uh, widespread slave resistance, the resistance of enslaved people during the Civil War, as a kind of general strike. Yes, there was military resistance. Yes, there were enslaved people who were, functioning as part of the Union Army and spies and so forth for it. But the most common way for millions of people to resist was simply, and it wasn't a simple process, was to stop working, was to run away, and to basically bring the plantation economy to its knees. And the South, without being able to rely on that labor power, which was the essence of its economy, had no supplies, had no more functioning economy, and it actually expedited and played a huge role in the Northern victory. And it's something that's almost never taught because we think of the war as simply fought between generals or between Lincoln and the Confederacy. But Brandon Johnson was making the point that if the enslaved people who are up against the worst possible conditions could do that, it shows that in almost any kind of conditions, there's always the potential to take collective labor action. And I think it's a very important point he made, and I think we should all be making it. We're going into the 250th year of the United States next year, and Trump is going to be making all these historical points about how the country's always been sort of racist and imperialist and pro big business kind of conception of history. And facts like these allow us to show that actually the general strike is a proud part of our history. Second strike I want to mention is 1886 in Chicago, which a lot of people know about, but not enough. May 1st, 1886, there was a general strike in that area. Workers were coming into the streets because of police repression and because of wages being cut. And look, these are things that are still with us to this day. And what started off as sort of small workplace actions rapidly escalated, and ultimately the big demand that everyone was in the streets for was to lower the workday to 8 hours. Prior to that, it was very common for our workday to be 10, 12, even 14 hours, and many different workplaces, including the steel industry, were 7 days a week. It had to be fought to get down to 6 days a week. and then 5 days a week, and then 12 to 10, and then finally to 8 hour. The 8 hour workday was not something that the big capitalists wanted to just impose. It had to be one. And actually, that strike led to a lot of repression. The leaders of that strike, some of them were hanged. They were unfairly and they were framed up basically for an act of violence that took place there. And the 8 hour workday was not won right away. It actually took decades more. But what that general strike did was it consolidated in people's minds, workers of all different types, of all different industries, and in fact, all over the country, that this is something we're all fighting for. So it was understood that when the workers' struggle picked up again, everyone had a common demand of 8 hours, of the 8 hour workday. Interestingly, again, about U.S. history, we don't honor May 1st officially inside the U.S. government, but it's honored in almost every other country in the world. That's a general strike that originated from Chicago in our country, and yet we're the only country that doesn't recognize it. And the point is obvious why they don't want us to recognize it, is they don't want us to get big ideas. The next big strikes that take place in the Great Depression. In the 1930s, in 1934, there were general strikes in 3 cities. I think this is important to focus on, because when we say general strike, the assumption might be that we're all going to go on strike everywhere in the country, all in the same time and day. But historically, that's not really how things have worked. Things always begin in a certain place, and then people are inspired, and there's copycat actions, and things start to spread. So in 1934, there was a lot of labor action, but there were 3 general strikes in Toledo, San Francisco, and Minneapolis. They also were not something that were long planned, like we're going to go on general strike on this exact day and time. It was a response to the government's repression. It was a response to very particularly bad policies and layoffs and wage cuts that were taking place. And then the labor unions, sometimes the labor unions didn't even want to do it, but the workers themselves kind of pushed the unions into doing it. And then things started to spread. They all weren't total victories. And I think this is important to say. It's not like you get every one of your demands when you go on strike. It's not an automatic win. But what about this? 1935, inside the US government, we start to have labor reforms. We start to have Social Security, unemployment insurance, all the different social and economic programs that we now count on as if they were part of the US Constitution or part of our government forever. They're not. All of them were won after a wave of general strikes. One other thing to note about this is that during this period, unemployment was at 20 to 25%. This is the height of the Great Depression. That meant it was very hard to go on strike. It was actually harder to go on strike then than it is now, because you're one of the few lucky ones who has a job. So usually you can see strike actions increase when unemployment is lower, because workers feel a little more confident to take action. But here's an example of workers taking action even when unemployment was high. And they had to develop new tactics and new ways to get around that problem. A few years later, in Flint, Michigan, and other places, workers said, we're not going to go out on strike, we're going to sit down on strike. And that way, they prevented the employer from replacing them with unemployed workers. And they were able to shut down production. So this also is where we really have the main unions come out of this wave of struggle. Before this period, labor unions themselves were essentially illegal organizations, and the government did not give workers the right to collectively bargain and organize as a federal right, but that right is won after these general strikes. And now finally, I want to just skip ahead, because all of this might seem like ancient history for people who are born in the 1980s and 1990s, but we actually do have a more recent general strike that, again, is not a general strike of all workers across all industries of all types, but in 2006, there was an immigrant workers strike. It was called A Day Without an Immigrant. I was part of it, and as were many other activists. And the reason why that general strike took place, again, it wasn't because it was long planned, actually. It was because there was legislation that had already passed the House of Representatives that made it a crime to provide any type of assistance to an undocumented person. It could be even maybe giving them a ride somewhere, providing them a warm plate of food. They said that was a felony, to knowingly provide assistance to an undocumented person. This passed the House. It was called the Sensenbrenner bill, and it was starting to go into the Senate. This was under George W. Bush. And immigrant workers started to mobilize. And after a few months of marches that were generally just sort of growing in strength, they weren't strikes at all. Finally, things got to such a point, and there were so many people in motion that the demand started. I think first in Chicago and Los Angeles. I can't remember which one was first. They can debate that out. But then it went all over the country. Every small town, every big city, wherever there were concentrations of immigrant workers, the immigrant workers shut everything down, basically as a way of saying, you know, you like to vilify us and demonize us. We're going to show you what it's like when we don't go to work. And so, especially across the food chain, there was total paralysis. And what happened was that bill in the Senate was killed. And instead of people talking about this terrible bill, all the senators started talking about, well, let's have comprehensive immigration reform. And that's really where that discussion gets going. Not out of the goodness of their hearts, but out of a general strike. And actually, a problem, I would say, as someone who took part in that, was that many people trusted those politicians that they were going to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And they said, you don't need to march anymore. You don't need to go on strike anymore. Just vote for us. And when people did vote for them, the Democrats got a majority of the House, majority of the Senate. Then they won the White House in 2008 under Obama, and they did not pass comprehensive immigration reform. And one can only wonder if the strikes had continued, if the workers' actions had continued, perhaps we wouldn't be in the situation we're in today, where you have 12 to 13 million undocumented people who are being totally abused and vilified and demonized and attacked, now physically attacked in cities across the country because they didn't get the full comprehensive legal equality that they deserved. But I think that's the kind of moment we could be going to once again. All these attacks on immigrant workers are under the assumption that immigrant workers are too afraid to ever take action themselves. History proves that is not the case. And I would say what's different this time compared to 2006 is that there are millions more people who are not immigrants, who are citizens, who are equally outraged, and who also would want to take action in defense of our immigrant brothers and sisters. So in fact, 2006, which involved millions of workers, could end up being very small if we had all the people who care about immigrant rights take collective labor action today. So just to summarize, it has happened before. It can happen again. It can't be artificially manufactured. But when political events become dynamic and explosive, and people are already angry, and people already want to get organized, and once they have it in their heads that there is this ultimate weapon, which is called the general strike, then big things can happen very suddenly. So I'll turn it over to the next presenter. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear from Eugene.
Well, thanks, Eliza. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks to everyone who's hosting a watch party. Just shout out to everybody. I am super excited, super amped. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Now is the time. This I don't know what else we could be doing on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, I do, but this is the best place that we could be. And I just thank everybody. I know everyone's got a lot going on for being willing to be here. And I appreciate, Ben, you ending on the 2006 immigrant rights general strike, which was amazing. And shout out to the folks in Colorado joining from an ice watch to be a part of this. And when I say we are the ones we are waiting for, like, we can see this happening right now. We can see even in small, I don't even want to say small, but in not as big as we're going to get, that we are going to get, not if, that we are going to get right now. Look at what just happened in North Carolina over the past several days. ICE is like, okay, we're going in there, Border Patrol, Bovino is flying from Chicago, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And all of a sudden, Charlotte, Durham, Raleigh just start exploding, huge demonstrations all over the place. And a couple days later, all of a sudden you start to hear the school system in Charlotte is shut down because students are just walking out en masse. The whole city of Raleigh and Durham and the Triangle is going to do a huge shutdown. And it looks like it's going to be big. The city is canceling the tree lighting ceremony because everybody is ready to stand up and to defend our undocumented loved ones and neighbors and co-workers. And all of a sudden, you start seeing like it's going to get shut down. Next thing you know, you start seeing text that ICE is seeing, headed right out of town in Charlotte and Triangle because they know what it is. They understand that we have the power, that the people have the power, that we can actually stand up, fight back, push back, and win. They believe that we can win. We have to believe we can win. They are sitting, the elite people in this country who are pushing an agenda that is really, when you come down to it, all about impoverishing the working class to the highest degree possible. They understand that they are sitting on top of a volcano. That is why they are using such deeply repressive methods to try to control us, to break up our communities, to keep up from organizing, to demonize people, and to all the lies they tell. That's why every general strike and every big strike wave in history has been met with huge repression and howling cries of horrible, radical, this, that, and the third, foreign interference, and all these other things, because the richest, most elite people in this country know that we can win. They themselves believe that. They are deathly afraid of the power of working class people when they come together across all lines around the one thing that we have in common, that when we withhold our labor, everything stops. And that's why they invest so much time in trying to hold things down. I mean, just think about this in 1877, where workers had a huge general strike that basically shut down almost the entire US economy for 2 weeks. Now, a lot of things happened, but just to connect a few dots. In Chicago in 1877, it got so hot in terms of workers and the tens of thousands rising up and shutting down the city, they had to call in the army. And who did they bring? They brought the troops that had just been fighting in the West, destroying the indigenous people in the Great Sioux War. In St. Louis at the same time, everything became so hot that they had to bring in federal troops and the army. Who did they bring? The same troops that they had in the South that had been protecting black people against the Ku Klux Klan and that they had withdrawn in a corrupt bargain that had happened just the year before. The president was Rutherford B. Hayes. Now, when he became the president, based on this corrupt bargain to end Reconstruction, he was riding in a train car when he got the news, controlled by a guy named Tom Scott, who is the head of the Railway Association that was behind cutting workers' wages to below starvation wages in order to that set off the general strike in 1877. So you can see there that the fear that they have, whether it's waging war in the West, whether it's sending those same troops to shoot down striking workers, whether it's ending the rise of black political power that grew out of the general strike of the Civil War, that the elite in this country from 1877 to 2025 know that they are the minority, that we are the majority, and that at the end of the day, the only way they can stop us is to try to repress us. But ultimately, that doesn't work either, because we see people power always overcomes everyone else. So this is, I think, an exciting time for us, even though it's a terrible time. And we can see what I mentioned in North Carolina. You can see the 7 million people who were just on the streets. You can see, we don't have to look that long ago, 2020, what took place in this country. I was there in Minneapolis when it went down. No one saw that happening. I'm talking to you now from Baltimore. I was there in 2015. No one saw that happening. No one saw Ferguson coming. But look at the rumblings and the things that we have seen in our own lifetimes in just a small way to show us that the possibility and the power of the people is actually there for us to be able to rise up. And it's a time where we know that there is so much rising discontent in this country. Last year, you had the poll from the New York Times, not Eugene Puryear, the New York Times, not really a radical, revolutionary organization, asking people what they thought about the economy. 69% of people saying the economy needs to be either totally transformed or completely torn down. Totally transformed or completely torn down over a supermajority of the people in this country. You look at the Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey, and this gives you a sense why that had 69% of people were out there. And just so you know, Trump has discontinued the Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey. But it was saying week in and week out, it would ask people, could you meet your expenses, or how much trouble were you having meeting your expenses week to week? And you would see consistently 120, 130, 140 million people consistently, week in and week out, having at least a little trouble meeting their expenses week to week. So basically every single worker having trouble meeting their expenses. We can see that inflation is up theoretically 3%, the way you look at that. But just think about it like this. You've got electricity that's up almost 6%. The piped gas, and we're going into the winter. So a lot of people are going to be using gas to stay warm, to keep from freezing to death in their own home, up 11% year on year in just the last month. I mean, people are suffering in so many different ways. So we can see people coming out on the streets. We can see the economic deprivation that's happening. We can look at the repression that's coming from the Trump administration that's aided and abetted by so many of the Democrats who claim to be for us. And I think we can see very clearly that there is a volcano ready to explode in this country of working class people coming together to unify our people as a whole in order to be able to push back, to go on the offensive, to stop just taking what they give us, but to really push back. So I think that's what we have to keep in mind when we think about 1877, 1886, 1892, the general strike of New Orleans. Check that out. Black and white workers coming together just 4 years or so, 6 years or so before Plessy v. Ferguson in the tens of thousands to shut down the entire economy of New Orleans and not being broken up when the newspapers came out and did race baiting. And look at what just happened in North Carolina again. They say there's an issue between black people and immigrants. Well, when the students walked out in Durham, look at the hundreds of black students walking out in solidarity with their immigrant students that are alongside with them, standing up and fighting back. Things that they say could never happen are always happening when workers come together. The divisions they say we could never come, we always overcome when workers come together. That's the hidden history. That's what they want to keep away from us. So let's continue to move forward. Let's continue to think about what we need to do. Let's think about the things in the past and our own lifetime. I mean, the things that we say, and I'll close here, when we march and when we protest, sometimes it's we have to believe them. Like, we are unstoppable. Another world is possible. When workers come out and take power into our own hands, that is what a real democracy looks like. Workers controlling the economy and running society. Like, I believe we can win. We have to believe that we can win. Where there is no struggle, there is no progress, as Frederick Douglass said. Like, we have to believe and understand these slogans because we have this power. History proves we have this power. Our current reality proves that we have this power, even if we haven't fully manifested it yet. Look at how viral the thing went for the general strike with the mayor. Look at how everything about boycotting during Black Friday is going viral all over social media. We have to be the ones to turn that into a powerful force, but we can do it. And as the comrade said from Detroit, every obstacle can be overcome in how we take care of our own people. In St. Louis, they took over the city for 5 days in 1877. How were people going to eat? The workers figured that out. In 1934 in San Francisco, in 1934 in Minneapolis, how are you going to run the economy? How are you going to make sure you have milk for the children? They figured that out with the strike committees. We can come together. We can run it ourselves. You know how they say it's not rocket science? Well, listen, rocket scientists are workers too. And some of them, by the way, in California are organizing right now. So whatever your job is, we have every single thing we need to run society. So let's shut it down to prove we have control. And then we'll take the next step to put the other people, our people, in power so we can displace the Elon Musk and all these other people. So I just say, if someone I think is dropping in the chat, the strike card, please, 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 get 10 friends, get 20 friends, strike up a conversation in the line at the grocery store, get in the chat for your 10th anniversary high school reunion and start talking to people you haven't talked to in 10 years and get them to sign up. Get them to sign a strike card. Get them to commit to be able to come out because we are going to be an organizing force of such power. We're going to be evangelists for a general strike that's going to stretch every part of this country, every nook and cranny, every different person. I don't care what language you speak, where you're from, whether you were born here, whether you were born somewhere else. We can come together and we can do it, but only if we spread the word. We must organized. So get the strike card signed. If you're in some sort of other organization and y'all got something going on, drop that in the chat too so people can organize with you in your city, wherever you are. I'm a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. You can connect with us at pslweb.org/action. But all you need to do is continue to organize, to take the spirit, to take the history. We'll continue to learn. Follow all the groups you see here on social media. I know I need to stop talking, so I'm going to stop talking. But I just want y'all to know that I really believe that we are going to do this thing. I've seen the power that we have. I mean, I never will forget this. In Occupy in 2012 in DC, and I was there, and we were out there the first day, and it seemed like, what is this? And every single car, though, was honking as they went by us. Every single car. And I remember a brother came through in a brand new Mercedes with his fist out the window, leaning on the horn. And it sounded a little crazy, but hey, we know I got a quarter tank of gas in my new E-Class, as the big timers say. We all out here trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. And we're tired of doing it. We know we need something different. And people want to stand up when they see us stand up. So let's be the ones that stand up. Organize, organize, organize. History is full of surprises, especially for the exploiters. Organize, organize, organize. General strike, US, is coming sooner than we think if we stand up and be counted. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much, Eugene. I really don't know what to say after that. I don't think there is anything left to be said. And we have almost 1,000 people right now just fired up and ready in the YouTube comments on this Zoom. I just wanted to, some of the folks are saying, united we stand, divided we fall, unite. So inspiring. Thank you. We need to organize first. People will join us if they see us doing shit. Amazing. So thank you so much. And finally, we're going to call on Day, who is out in Detroit. If you could close us out. Thank you so much, Eugene.
All right. Can you all hear me? All right.
Yeah.
Testing. All right. So before we end, I just want to take a moment to speak, plainly from the heart. Um, every movement that has ever shifted power and changed lives, from the freedom struggles to the labor rebellions to the Panthers feeding children, even before the state cared. All of it was built by everyday people, people like you and me, people who decided that they weren't going to wait for permission to change their conditions. So a general strike is no different. It's a moment led, not by celebrities or politicians. It's a collective decision made by workers, caretakers, students, elders, healers, hustlers, parents, neighbors, revolutionaries, people who know in our bones that this system was never built for us. And because of that, we're the ones with the power to end it and build something new. So if we want a future where our communities thrive, where we're cared for, resourced, defended, and valued, we have to begin now. We have to start organizing with courage and with love. So I'm asking you, with love, with urgency, and with belief in our collective power, step in, show up, and believe. If we're serious about building a mass movement where none of us does this alone, here are three things you can do right now. Number one, sign your strike card at generalstrikeus.com. Number two, you send that link to 10 people. Let's keep the movement growing, expanding, spreading. Number three, join a local organization if you aren't already in one, and put the general strike on their agenda. So whether it's DSA, SEIU, the Sunrise Movement, the People's Poor Campaign, or any formation you're a part of, push them to take this moment seriously. We've tried voting, we've tried marching. It's time for us to organize a strike, because it's not just about resisting the violence of the system. It's about creating the world our ancestors dreamed of, and the world our children deserve to inherit. So a world that's rooted in mutual aid and solidarity and shared power and knowledge. That's going to keep us safe. So the general strike is only possible if all of us do it together, if all of us make it real together and believe that we can. I believe that we already are. For example, the mass blackout that's taking place December 25th to November 2nd. Let's keep building the momentum. Let's keep withholding our labor and our purchasing power and redirecting that back into our communities. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for choosing courage. Let's build the new world together. All power to the people.
Thank you, Day. And thank you all, everyone, so much for joining. The purpose of this call, like why did we, put so much time and energy into making sure everyone's here on this Saturday to talk about a general strike? Because we are urgently in need of a mass movement of everyday people to look to our leaders and say, look, we have voted, we've tried, we've protested, we've been on the streets, we've held up the signs, we've done it all. We now need to strike. And so thank you all so much. We have a little bit of extra time. So we're gonna answer some questions in the chat. Anyone on the Zoom, Ben, Eugene, Day, if you have a good answer for one of these questions, feel free to jump in. So a lot of people are asking, like, I am so fired up. What's next? What's the next step? Does anyone want to touch on that? Go for it, Eugene.
Well, thanks so much. And I'm excited that people are ready to take the next step. The next step is we got to tell more people and we have to get them involved in some form of real organization. There's a lot of organizations that are involved. There's individuals who are involved. You can become self-organized if you want to become self-organized. That organize quote I did, that was Kwame Ture. And he used to also say, join an organization, join an organization, join an organization. You got General Strike US and the PSL have helped put this webinar on. There's others that I think I've heard and seen mentioned here. I ask folks, drop it in the chat if you have some way for people to connect with you. If you're just by yourself, just put your city and look out for your city and seeing if you can come together. Because the way this is going to happen is for us to become a set of nodes all across the nation, in all walks of life, and all different types of jobs that help people understand a lot of what we talked about here today on this call. And we have to be able to help people understand, A, that this is not, in some ways it's unprecedented, but that our people have come together before across all possible lines. In all possible forms of division. That two, that there's power in numbers, and that the more of us who act together, the more unstoppable we ultimately will be because we ultimately control production. One thing I always say to people is, if you don't come to work, you're probably gonna be in trouble. But if your boss doesn't come to work, you still gotta work, right? So who actually is controlling the job, you or the boss? Because they can show up or not show up and the business runs. If you don't show up, the business is not running. So we have to help people understand their power in that real sort of visceral type of way. Three, we also have to help people understand that, yes, there are risks, but what is the risk of not acting? That is something we have to keep asking ourselves. I mean, you look at the numbers I quoted, of hundreds of millions of people struggling to make it. That's us. We all know how it is. And a lot of times we're ashamed to talk about it because they tell us if you have a problem, it's you, not the society, not this capitalist society that's against us. So what is the cost of not acting? So we have to be able to educate people, organize people, and let them know that, yes, there are risks, but the more of us who act together, the more we can mitigate that risk. And in fact, when all of us stand up in our tens and hundreds of millions, the only risk is the risk to the big, powerful billionaires and 100 millionaires and CEOs and executives and corporate suites who are going to be wondering what the hell they're going to do because there ain't going to be nobody to drive their limos, fly their planes, run their businesses, check them out at the bank. If they even do that, I don't even know how they deal with their money because I never had that much money. They won't even know what to do. So we have to get organized. So look to how you can find a way to get organized. Get the strike card, sign people up. But don't just sign people up, figure out how you can have a meeting. Even if it's a meeting of your friends in your house, the 10 people you got to sign the card and say, how are we going to do what we said we're going to do? And you don't know exactly what you're going to do? Well, email us and we'll help you figure it out somehow, some way and make things happen. But we have hundreds of thousands of people that have already signed up. We're ready to go. Like I said, those of us in the PSL are ready to do what we can to lend shoulder to the wheel to help whatever efforts you want to bring together with our experience and maybe lack of experience, but just willingness to do things to help people become more self-acting and organized. We've got demands that we can put forward, but we have to organize and we have to believe that if we can shut down this economy, it's real. So General Strike US, great place to start. PSLweb.org/action, great place to start. Whatever you saw in the chat, great place to start. Just your own friends and neighbors, great place to start. But we have to get organized and we have to be able to take this message to hundreds of millions of people. And we can do it. We've already seen the popularity of what's going on and we can do different things. Detroit shouted out the mutual aid they're doing. I know there's a couple other cities on this call that are also doing that. So we can start to prepare for how we build the infrastructure for when we have to go on strike. But this is how we start to go on the offensive, how we stop asking, oh my God, they're doing all this to us. This is how we get them to be sitting around thinking like, oh my God, the workers are coming against us right now. So get organized, get together, join an organization, bring together the call, get people to sign the cards, build the infrastructure. That's what's next. And like I said, there's organizations that can help you do it. You yourself can become an organization, and we're going to become one big organization of the working class of the United States and hopefully the world that is actually going to be able to take over, because we can do something totally different than what's going on now. The only thing that is standing in our way is the fact that we aren't coming together enough to make it happen. So yes, that's just my take, but any other thoughts on that, I'm happy to take, and shout out to y'all for being here on this call.
Thanks again, Eugene. Okay, another question that keeps coming up is, what is a strike card? And that is a really, really good question. So a lot of times when you are organizing a strike, I was out running around McDonald's parking lots at all hours of the night trying to get fast food workers on strike to demand $15 an hour as a minimum wage. And the first thing you do if you've ever, organized your workplace or organized in your union is a commitment card. And they are sometimes physical, and it says, are you ready to strike? And that card is your verbal promise that you are ready to shut it down, right? We always say, if we don't get it, shut it down. So a strike card is, we built on generalstrikeus.com's website. It is a virtual strike card, and that is what over 400,000 people have signed to show their collective solidarity, their commitment to a general strike when we are ready. And research shows we need at least 3.5% of the population for a general strike to be successful. So our goal is to hit 11 million strike cards. And that is when folks say sign your strike card, they're talking about the virtual strike card at generalstrikeus.com. And then a lot of folks as well, of course, are asking about demands. What are the demands of the strike? And it's a really, really good question. And ultimately, the leaders in the fights for racial, economic, climate, and gender justice who are already out fighting for social justice will help shape demands. But some folks at the general strike have created a framework. So, Day, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, I'm just making sure I'm on the screen properly.
You're good.
All right, sweet. So if you'd like to learn more about our demands, you can check out our welcome packet, which is found on our link tree. You'll see our broad list of demands there. We also have our core demands, which is basically a simplified, shareable version of what you will find on the welcome packet. We turned it into an acronym to help people, remember what we're fighting for, remember what we're organizing towards, and that acronym basically is it spells out power. So we have P for people over profits, O for our right to self-determination, W, working class liberation. We have E, equity and autonomy, and R, resistance to empire. Those 5 core demands can be, all of our broad list of demands can fit inside of those 5 core demands. Basically, our demands are about true liberation and equity for all oppressed people.
Thank you. Ben, did you have something to add or say on any of the questions?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I think it's important to, again, kind of look at history and see how things like this develop. And I don't think that the general strike really puts forward different demands from that of the whole movement, as you were saying, Eliza. Like if the demand in Charlotte is to get the border patrol out, and that's the thing that's making high school students walk out, and that's the thing that's making people say they want to shut down the whole town. It's not any other organization from anywhere else that's going to come and say this should be the real demand. What we're talking about is introducing a different sort of tactical and strategic framework for how we achieve the demands that are already in society. Because if we don't put forward a strategic and tactical framework around striking, meaning the working class exercising its power, then what is our strategy to force the ruling class to concede things? Well, the only one that they're going to come up with, the one that's circulating already, and it's going to intensify in the coming year, is the midterm elections. And people will say, stop marching and now vote. And if voting is the main way, and it's not about whether you vote or don't vote, but when you just look historically at what allows the movement to take things up a notch, it's when people move from protest to forms of resistance and striking. Whereas when people move from protest back to voting as the primary avenue of political activity, then they usually don't achieve their demands. And frankly, they get sold out time and time again. So how do you keep the pressure up? How do you keep the intensity up? How do you keep this desire for change up? We have to change. One of the other folks early said the political horizon, meaning what are we all marching towards? It's not about creating a framework from outside and a new set of demands that represents the general strike. No, it's the general strike is the way we achieve all the demands, the righteous demands that we're already fighting for. And whether you're fighting for environmental justice, labor rights, whether you're fighting against ICE, I think that is the main thing right now. Like, it would be crazy to come up with a set of demands that don't involve that as the centerpiece, because that's the thing that's driving people into the streets, into organizing. So how do we go into the immigrant rights movement and make this point too? And say in 2006 we withheld our labor, and we completely changed the correlation of forces. We changed what was possible. We changed what was going to be presented legislatively. And a lot of people who are taking action just don't know that history. So I think that for us in the PSL, that's the main thing. It's like right now we have to try to change people's political horizon. Otherwise, they're going to get sucked back into the midterm elections, which frankly is a failed strategy for making profound social change. It's not the strategy for that. So we are sort of in a competition for how do we make change.
Thank you, Ben. And thank you so much, everyone. We have 6 more minutes till the top of the hour. Um, and I just want to thank each and every one of you. The 1,000 people who called in on YouTube and took time out of your day. Our incredible speakers, Eugene and Ben and Day and Raina from New York City and Ben from New York City and Janelle and all of you. If there's one thing you should take out of this, it's that no one's coming to save us but us. And we have to do things differently for this to work. So every single one of you on the call today needs to see yourself as a leader, as an ambassador for this idea of a general strike. So whatever it is that you've always thought, maybe I should, grow that garden and start helping, feed that neighbor that doesn't ever seem to have enough. Maybe I should unionize my workplace. Do it. The time is now. We have no time to wait. And every single person, whether you have a job, whether you're retired, everyone can go out and talk to 10 people and tell them that we're sick of voting, we're sick of protesting. It's time we went on strike to escalate the demands of working people. So thank you all so much for being here, and signing off. All power to the people. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.